Most people know the stork as the bird that brings babies. What they don't know is that the story actually makes sense when you look at the timing. In pagan Northern Europe, wedding ceremonies were held on the summer solstice. That's right around when the storks would disappear for the season, and 9 months later the storks came back, right in time for all those honeymoon babies. People noticed, they connected the dots, and honestly, for an era before biology class, it's not a bad piece of observation. The German tradition went a step further. They believed the souls of unborn babies live in the mists and stones in the bogs and wetlands where the storks nested. They had a name for those stones, something like Adebarsteine, which translates into stork stone. The idea was that the storks retrieved the souls from those stones and carried them to the waiting families. What I found just as interesting is that the Sioux tribe in North America came up with almost the exact same story, completely independently, attributing it to the North American wood stork. We're talking about cultures separated by more than 100,000 years, landing on the same mythology about the same type of bird. That kind of convergent thinking is the part that keeps me up at night. What nobody had figured out, though, was where the storks actually went. For centuries, people had no idea. There were serious theories that storks hibernated at the bottoms of lakes, waiting out the cold months underwater before surfacing in the spring. These weren't folk tales told around the campfire. Credentialed people debated this. Then, in 1822, a stork landed in Germany with an African spear through its neck. The bird had flown roughly 2,000 miles with that thing embedded in it. The spear was identified as African in origin, and that was that. Suddenly, everyone understood what was actually happening. The bird was stuffed and is still on display in a German museum today, and since then there have been 12 other documented cases of storks arriving in Europe with African weapons still stuck in them. The migration itself is something to appreciate on its own. Storks are big birds with a wingspan that can hit 7 feet, but they only weigh 5 or 6 pounds. Standing one in a doorway, its wings would stretch nearly from the floor to the top of the frame. Most of that span is just feathers, not muscle, so they depend on thermal air vents to stay aloft on long flights. The problem is there are no thermal vents over the open water. The Mediterranean is essentially a wall they can't cross. So instead of flying straight across, they have to funnel around it, either through Turkey to the east or through the Straits of Gibraltar to the west. That detour turns the trip into a 9,000-mile round-trip journey. About 25% of the European stork population ends up spending the breeding season in Poland, which has a mix of wetlands and open farmland that suits them just fine. I'll be honest though, the thing that got me most about this one was the spear story. The idea that a single bird flying home from Africa with a weapon through its neck accidentally handed scientists the answers to one of the most persistent mysteries in European natural history. That's the kind of detail that makes this whole process worth showing up at 5:30 in the morning for.